Trump pushes his Greenland gambit, Europe unites and hits back. From Davos, leaders warn that the US-led world order is cracking. In a direct dig at Trump, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says compliance will no longer buy safety. French President Emmanuel Macron says we prefer respect to bullies, rule of law to brutality. Tempers flare as Danish MP Anders Vistisen blasts Trump over Greenland. While speaking in the European Parliament, he says, "F off, Mr. President." Tension spikes following Trump's insistence on bringing Greenland under American control. Trump vows to wipe out Iran if the US is harmed, escalating fiery threats as Iran warns the US against attacks on its supreme leader. This comes after Iran's brutal crackdown on nationwide protests and Trump's threat to intervene. India faces looming 500% tariff threat over Russian oil as the US weighs its tough Senate bill. Washington's message is clear but cautious amid global energy tensions. 2 days after sparring with his Polish counterpart on support to terror state Pakistan, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar pushes India's message of zero tolerance to terrorism during talks with the Spanish Foreign Minister in New Delhi. After months of speculation over the status of their marriage, US Vice President J.D. Vance and Second Lady Usha Vance announced they are expecting their 4th child, a boy, this summer. Another turn in Tamil Nadu politics. TTV Dinakaran returns to the NDA, vows unity and revival of Amma's rule. The state gears up for a fierce three-way battle in this year's assembly polls. In a shock move, Raj Thakre's MNS backs Eknath Shinde's Shiv Sena, breaking ties with cousin Uddhav Thakre in the Kalyan Dombivli district of Maharashtra. A razor-thin race tightens as alliances shift before the crucial mayoral race. Hello and welcome to the Times of India. You're watching Headlines at 8 with me, Neha Khanna. Our top story. As Donald Trump continues to provoke with his threats to annex Greenland, some of America's closest allies are openly declaring the end of the US-led global order. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, European leaders signaled a rare show of defiance, vowing to close ranks over Denmark's Arctic island, and indicated that the days of putting up with Trump's bullying are over. The sharpest and most powerful words came from Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, who said the US-led global system of governance is enduring a rupture defined by great power competition and a fading rules-based order. In a speech that has gone viral, Carney said, "Let me be clear, we are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false. The strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically, that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim." He went on to say, "Call it what it is, a system of intensifying great power rivalry, where the most powerful pursue their interests using economic integration as coercion. Countries like Canada can no longer hope that compliance will buy safety. It won't." The Canadian Prime Minister added, "Middle powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. Great powers can afford, for now, to go it alone. They have the market size, the military capacity and the leverage to dictate terms. Middle powers do not." Mark Carney was not alone in striking a note of defiance. French President Emmanuel Macron was unusually blunt too, saying Europe would not bow to the law of the strongest, calling it crazy that the European Union was even contemplating deploying its anti-coercion trade bazooka against the United States. Macron also proposed a NATO military exercise in Greenland and signaled its readiness to actively participate. Macron added, "We do believe that we need more growth, we need more stability in this world, but we do prefer respect to bullies, and we prefer rule of law to brutality." European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen echoed the mood, saying the speed and scale of global change had forged a new consensus for strategic independence. She said it's time to seize this opportunity and build a new independent Europe. Belgium's Prime Minister warned Europe stood at a crossroads between unity and humiliation. Prime Minister Bart de Wever said, "Being a happy vassal is one thing, being a miserable slave is something else. If you back down now, you will lose your dignity. So we should unite and we should say to Donald Trump, you're crossing red lines here. We either stand together or we will stand divided." As Trump prepares to deliver his address in Davos amid immense diplomatic strain, Europe is already planning an emergency Greenland summit and weighing retaliatory tariffs on billions of euros worth of American goods. From the tariff wars unleashed by Trump to his threats to invade Greenland, trust between the US and its European allies seems to lie in tatters. Trump has said he plans to meet with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and other parties to discuss Greenland during his Davos trip. But many of the most relevant parties are likely not to join the meeting. With Denmark's Prime Minister avoiding Davos altogether and Emmanuel Macron leaving without meeting Trump, the message from Europe is unmistakable. Stand together now or risk being picked apart in a Trump-shaped world order.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must. And this aphorism of Thucydides is presented as inevitable, as the natural logic of international relations reasserting itself. And faced with this logic, there is a strong tendency for countries to go along to get along, to accommodate, to avoid trouble, to hope that compliance will buy safety. Well, it won't. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited.
But we do prefer respect to bullies, we do prefer science to plotism, and we do prefer rule of law to brutality. We have a place where rule of law and predictability is still the rule of the game. And my guess is that it is largely underpriced by the market. Having a place like Europe, which sometimes is too slow, for sure, and needs to be reformed, for sure, but which is predictable, loyal, and where you know that the rule of the game is just the rule of law, it's a good place. And here in the epicenter of this continent, we do believe that we need more growth, we need more stability in this world, but we do prefer respect to bullies, we do prefer science to plotism, and we do prefer rule of law to brutality. You're welcome in Europe, and you are more than welcome to France.
When it comes to the security of the Arctic region, Europe is fully committed. And we share the objectives of the United States in this regard. For instance, our EU member, Finland, one of the newest NATO members, is selling its first icebreakers to the United States. And this shows that we have the capability right here in the ice, so to speak. It shows that our northern NATO members have Arctic-ready forces right now. And above all, that Arctic security can only be achieved together. And this is why the proposed additional tariffs are a mistake, especially between long-standing allies. The European Union and the United States have agreed to a trade deal last July. And in politics, as in business, A deal is a deal. And when friends shake hands, it must mean something. Ladies and gentlemen, we consider the people of the United States not just our allies, but our friends. And plunging us into a downward spiral would only aid the very adversaries we are both so committed to keeping out of the strategic landscape.
We're under a lot of pressure. We're 27 countries. And if you're under pressure, two things can happen. If you have outside pressure, you can come together or you can explode in any possible direction. And I think Europe is at a crossroads where it has to decide. Until now, we tried to appease the new president in the White House. We were very lenient, also with the tariffs. We were lenient, hoping to get his support for the Ukraine war. We are in a very bad position at the moment. We're dependent on the United States, so we chose to be lenient. But now so many red lines are being crossed that you have the choice between your self-respect. Being a happy vassal is one thing, being a miserable slave is something else. If you back down now, you're going to lose your dignity. And that's probably the most precious thing you can have in a democracy. It's your dignity. So we should unite.
Tempers flared inside the European Parliament as Danish lawmaker Anders Vistesen launched a sharp and unorthodox rebuke of US President Donald Trump over his controversial push on Greenland. He started by saying, "Dear President Trump, listen very carefully. Greenland has been part of the Danish kingdom for 800 years. It's an integrated country. It is not for sale." Vistesen then dramatically added, "Let me put this in words you might understand. Mr. President, F off." Parliament Vice President Nicolae Stefanuta cut the MP off and reminded him that profane language was strictly prohibited, regardless of how strongly he felt. The explosive exchange unfolded against the backdrop of renewed tensions over Trump's insistence on bringing Greenland under American control, which he claims is vital for global and national security. The friction has only intensified after Trump shared an altered image on Truth Social depicting Greenland alongside Canada and Venezuela under the US flag, fueling outrage and fears in Europe over sovereignty and Washington's increasingly aggressive posturing. Trump insists that mineral-rich Greenland is vital for the US and NATO security against Russia and China. He has turned up the pressure by slapping 10% tariffs on 8 European countries for backing Denmark, prompting Europe to threaten countermeasures against the United States.
Let me put this in words you might understand. Mr. President, det var næsten sådan ordene lød, da jeg...
A year ago, that's what I said when I was here. I said very clearly that if Trump, that it's a semantic exercise, but the message was clear then, because the only language Trump understands is direct language, and the only rebuttal that Trump understands is a strong one from the EU, but the EU has given in. The High Representative said it's legitimate to talk about security challenges in the Arctic. It's the US administration which has cut the number of soldiers from 15,000 to just 150. We talk about saying it's legitimate to talk about the rare earth resources in Greenland, but that's up to the Greenlanders. We have a trade agreement, so...
One question that is rippling through the corridors of the India Pavilion at the World Economic Forum in Davos is this: will India face a crushing 500% tariff for buying Russian oil? The uncertainty surfaced as US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent weighed in on a proposed Senate bill designed to punish countries still purchasing Russian crude. While Senator Lindsey Graham has framed the legislation as a weapon to choke Moscow's war finances, Bessent struck a more measured note, hinting that Washington's approach may not be as blunt as the threat suggests. Pointing to Europe's continued purchases of Russian oil years into the war, Bessent said the continent was effectively funding its own security crisis. He contrasted that with India, which began buying Russian crude only after the conflict erupted and has since scaled back under US pressure. China, however, remains a major buyer of Russian, Iranian and Venezuelan oil. With the final decision resting with President Trump, the signal from Washington is calibrated. India is not in the crosshairs yet, but the looming tariff threat remains a potent lever in a fractured and volatile global energy order.
What do you want to say about sanctions, something else you've been working on, of course? What are you planning there in terms of Iran and the impact there? Do sanctions actually work? And the same question with regard to 500% secondary sanctions or tariffs on countries who purchase energy products from Russia.
Okay, so two things there. There are Treasury sanctions. And if you look at a speech that I gave at the Economic Club of New York last March, I said that I believe the Iranian currency was on the verge of collapse, that if I were an Iranian citizen, I would take my money out. President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran, and it's worked. Because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is a dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports, and this is why the people took to the street. So this is economic statecraft. No shots fired, and things are moving in a very positive way here. On the 500% tariffs on the buyers of Russian oil, that is a proposal that Senator Graham has in front of the Senate, and we will see whether that passes. We don't believe that President Trump needs that authority, that he can do it under IEEPA, but that the Senate wants to give him that authority. And just to be clear, that we have Europe buying Russian oil still 4 years later, they are financing the war against themselves. India started buying Russian oil after the conflict began, but President Trump put a 25% tariff on them, and India has geared down and has stopped buying Russian oil. And then 3, China is a very large buyer of Russian oil, as they are of Iranian oil, as they were of Venezuelan oil. But guess what, Maria? No more Venezuelan oil for them.
India is turning up the diplomatic heat on terrorism as External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar pushed a message of zero tolerance during his talks with Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Albares in New Delhi today. Underscoring that both nations have been scarred by terror attacks, Jaishankar said a rapidly shifting global order makes closer coordination on shared threats more urgent than ever, rooted in common democratic values and respect for a rules-based international system. The statement comes 2 days after a diplomatic spat between Jaishankar and his Polish counterpart. On Monday, India and Poland sparred over their respective regional rivals as Jaishankar and Polish Foreign Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Radosław Sikorski aired their differences over Pakistan and Russia. Taking aim at Poland's renewed ties with Pakistan, Jaishankar told visiting Sikorski that India expects its partners not to help fuel terrorism in the neighbourhood, a reference to the Polish Foreign Minister's visit to Pakistan in October last year, where he had met with Pakistan's top leadership.
Excellency, India and Spain enjoy warm and friendly relations rooted in shared democratic values and respect for multilateralism and a rule-based order. Our political engagement has grown steadily, marked by regular high-level exchanges. India and Spain will celebrate in 2026, this year, the 70th anniversary of the establishment of our diplomatic relations, as well as the dual year of culture, tourism, and artificial intelligence. This initiative reflects our shared commitment to combining our rich cultural heritage with future-oriented cooperation. I'm delighted to have just launched jointly the logo for the dual year with you. The logo has been selected from over 1,900 entries received through an open competition. I would like to congratulate the teams for the effort and thank all the participants. Excellency, India is hosting the AI Impact Summit next month. Our approach to AI is human-centric, inclusive, and focused on its responsible and ethical use. I think it's very similar to the approach of Europe. We are confident that the dual year will encourage greater institutional and industry-led collaboration. Economic partnership is an important pillar of our relationship. Spain is among India's important trade partners in the EU, and our bilateral trade in goods has crossed $8 billion in recent years. Spanish companies have a significant presence in India, particularly in infrastructure, renewable energy, urban mobility, engineering, water management, and smart cities. Indian companies are also active in Spain in IT, pharmaceuticals, and automotive components. We see considerable potential to further deepen this business cooperation. Airbus Tata C295, a final assembly line in Vadodara, was jointly inaugurated by our leaders in October 2024. We are expecting the first made-in-India C295 aircraft to roll out of the factory before September this year. It reflects the growing depth of our defense industrial collaboration and our commitment to build resilient manufacturing capabilities. Minister, our partnership is enriched by strong cultural ties. The popularity of yoga, Ayurveda, and Indian culture in Spain and the growing interest in Spanish language and culture in India reflect the deep people-to-people connect between our societies. Tourism is also an important and growing pillar of our partnership. People-to-people links serve as a living bridge between India and Spain. We are committed to facilitating greater mobility, education exchanges, and institutional partnerships. Excellency, the world order is clearly undergoing a profound change. It is more imperative than ever before for nations to collaborate on shared challenges. This is particularly the case with respect to combating terrorism, where both India and Spain have been victims. The world must display zero tolerance towards terrorism. I look forward to our discussions today, and I'm confident that we will further strengthen our partnership. I now request you to make your opening remarks.
News from Tamil Nadu now, where political realignments have begun ahead of the assembly elections slated to be held this year. AMMK's TTV, Dinakaran, has dramatically returned to the BJP-led NDA fold. The move comes just days before Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to launch the NDA's campaign near Chennai, signalling a fresh political churn in the state's opposition space. Addressing a charged press conference in Chennai, Dinakaran cast the decision as a strategic reset aimed squarely at unseating the ruling DMK. Urging a break from past rivalries, he said politics demands compromise in the larger interest of governance and stability, calling the reunion with the NDA a new beginning. He claimed that political sacrifices were essential to spare the people of Tamil Nadu further turmoil. Invoking the legacy of J. Jayalalitha, Dinakaran appealed for unity among Amma's followers. Tamil Nadu's political chessboard shifted sharply as the AMMK chief met Union Minister and BJP state election in charge Piyush Goyal, sealing his party's return to the NDA. The BJP struck a confident note with Piyush Goyal declaring that the NDA would fight together to defeat what he termed the anti-Bharat DMK alliance, promising leadership, social justice, youth opportunities and global promotion of Tamil language and culture. AIDMK chief E. Palaniswamy has also thrown his weight behind Dinakaran's return to the NDA, calling it a step towards uniting like-minded forces with a common mission to serve the people. Framing the battle as one against DMK's tyrannical rule and dynastic politics, Palaniswamy invoked the legacy of Jayalalitha and said the alliance would work to revive Amma's model of governance and liberate the state through collective resolve. In a dramatic post-poll twist in Maharashtra, Raj Thakre's MNS has extended support to the Eknath Shinde-led Shiv Sena in the Kalyan-Dombivli Municipal Corporation, despite the two parties being rivals. Despite the Thakre brothers contesting the civic polls together, the MNS extending support to the rival Shinde faction has dealt a big blow to Uddhav Thakre. Former MNS MLA Pramod Raju Patil announced the move on behalf of the party's 5 corporators as Shiv Sena's 53 elected members gathered at the Konkan Divisional Commissioner's office in Navi Mumbai to formally stake their claim. At the same venue, the MNS corporators officially declared their support, signalling a striking realignment driven by post-election arithmetic. The Kalyan Dombivli Municipal Corporation verdict has delivered a razor-close mandate. Shiv Sena emerged as the single largest party with 53 seats in the 122-member House, followed by ally BJP with 50 and Shiv Sena UBT securing 11 and MNS 5. Kalyan MP Shrikant Shinde said the MNS decision was taken in the interest of the city's development, stressing that the Shiv Sena and the BJP had fought the polls together under the Mahayuti banner and that the mayor would be from the alliance. And finally, after months of speculation over the status of their marriage, US Vice President J.D. Vance and Second Lady Usha Vance have announced they are expecting a baby this summer. In a joint statement on social media, the couple have said, and I quote, "We're very excited to share the news that Usha is pregnant with our fourth child, a boy. Usha and the baby are doing well, and we're all looking forward to welcoming him in late July." The Vances have 3 children, Evan, Vivek and Mirabel, who have often joined them on travels across the country and the globe. This will mark the first time a sitting Second Lady of the United States has had a baby while in office. The Vance's message described the moment as exciting and hectic and expressed gratitude to military doctors and their staff. And that's all the time we have on this edition of Headlines at 8. Thanks for watching. Do join us again at the same time tomorrow.